For as long as Sam could remember, he'd had trouble sleeping. Insomnia plagued him, often dragging him into long, torturous nights filled with restless tossing and turning. His doctor prescribed medications, friends recommended herbal remedies, and his mother prayed for him, but nothing seemed to work. When sleep finally claimed him, it did so with an iron grip, chaining him to his bed and thrusting him into a suffocating darkness. It began subtly, as most insidious things do. At first it was just an odd sensation, a lingering heaviness on his chest that would dissipate when he forced himself awake. But over time the heaviness grew, transforming into a weight so oppressive that he felt like he was sinking into his mattress. One night, Sam woke to find he couldn't move. His eyes darted around the room, and he saw a shadowy figure standing in the corner, its form flickering like a faulty television signal. Sam's heart pounded as he struggled against the invisible bonds holding him down. The shadow figure glided closer, its presence cold and foreboding. It hovered over him, and though it had no discernible features, Sam felt its eyes two dark pits boring into his soul. He screamed, but no sound emerged. When he finally broke free of the paralysis, the shadow was gone, leaving him gasping and drenched in sweat. Sam dismissed it as a particularly vivid nightmare, but the encounters grew more frequent. Each night the shadow returned, and each night it lingered longer. He tried to explain it away, attributing the episodes to stress or perhaps a side effect of his medication. But the terror felt too real to be a figment of his imagination. His research led him to the term sleep paralysis, a phenomenon where a person, either falling asleep or awakening, temporarily experiences an inability to move or speak. The scientific explanation offered little comfort. Knowing it was a trick of the brain did not make the shadow any less terrifying. Sam's nights became a battleground, each sleep an invitation for the dark presence to return. Desperate for answers, Sam turned to an online forum dedicated to sleep disorders. There, he found stories similar to his own, tales of people haunted by shadowy figures and monstrous apparitions. One user, Nightera24, posted frequently about their own experiences. Their descriptions of a drowning man sounded eerily familiar, a spectral figure that loomed over them, bringing with it the sensation of suffocation. Sam reached out to Nightera24, hoping to find some solace in shared suffering. They exchanged messages late into the night, detailing their encounters and offering each other words of support. But as the days passed, Nightera24's messages grew darker, filled with a sense of impending doom. "The drowning man is not just a hallucination," Nightera24 wrote. "He's real, and he's coming for us." Sam wanted to dismiss it as paranoia, but the seed of doubt had been planted. His nightly terrors took on a new, sinister edge. The shadow no longer simply stood by his bed, it began to lean over him, its presence pressing down on him like a vice. He could feel the cold tendrils of its breath on his face, the smell of damp earth filling his nostrils. One particularly harrowing night, Sam woke to find himself submerged in water. Panic set in as he struggled against the liquid's icy grip. He thrashed, but the water seemed to hold him in place, an invisible force dragging him down. Through the murky depths, he saw the shadowy figure, its form now clearer. It was a man, his features gaunt, eyes hollow, and mouth perpetually open, in a silent scream. Sam's lungs burned as he fought for breath. Just as he thought he would drown, he jolted awake, coughing and gasping for air. His room was dry, his bed untouched, but the sensation of drowning lingered. Zor Karim, 04.07.2024-1346. The next day he called in sick to work, too shaken to face the world. He spent hours scouring the internet, looking for anything that might explain what was happening to him. His search led him to a local legend, a tale of a man who had drowned in the nearby lake decades ago. The man's body was never recovered, and locals claimed his restless spirit haunted the area, seeking to drag others down to share his watery grave. It was a long shot, but Sam felt a connection. He visited the lake, hoping to find some closure. As he stood by the water's edge, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The air was thick with an unnatural chill, and the water, usually calm, seemed to churn with unseen currents. Sam decided to perform a ritual he had read about, an offering to appease restless spirits. He placed a small wooden boat, adorned with flowers and a lit candle, onto the water. As the boat drifted away, he whispered a plea for peace, begging the spirit to leave him alone. That night, Sam slept deeply for the first time in months. The shadow did not return, and the oppressive weight lifted from his chest. He awoke feeling lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. Days turned into weeks, and the nightmares remained at bay. Sam began to believe he had rid himself of the drowning man's curse. He threw himself back into his work, socialized with friends, and even began dating again. Life was returning to normal. But one night, as he lay in bed, Sam felt a familiar heaviness settle over him. Panic surged as he realized he couldn't move. His eyes darted around the room, searching for the shadowy figure. It wasn't there. Instead, he felt the bed grow damp beneath him. Water seeped up through the mattress, soaking his sheets and clothes. The sensation of drowning returned, more intense than ever. He struggled to breathe as the water rose, submerging him. Through the murky depths, he saw the drowning man once more. This time, the figure reached out, its skeletal fingers wrapping around Sam's wrist. The cold seeped into his bones, and Sam felt himself being pulled under. In a final desperate act, he forced his eyes shut and willed himself awake. He emerged from the paralysis, coughing and sputtering, his bed dry but his body trembling. He knew then that the drowning man would never truly leave him. The spirit had marked him, and no ritual or plea could change that. Sam's life became a series of sleepless nights and fearful days. He tried everything to keep the spirit at bay: rituals, prayers, even moving to a new apartment, but nothing worked. The drowning man followed him, a relentless specter that thrived on his fear. The forum became his only solace. He shared his experiences with Night Horror 24, who had gone silent for weeks. When they finally responded, their message was brief and chilling. "He's taken me. You're next." Sam's blood ran cold. He had hoped to find strength in numbers, but now he realized he was utterly alone. The drowning man would not rest until he had claimed him. One night, as Sam prepared for bed, he felt an overwhelming sense of resignation. He was tired of fighting, tired of living in fear. He lay down, closed his eyes, and waited. The heaviness came quickly, pressing down on him with a familiar, suffocating weight. The water rose around him, cold and unyielding. He saw the drowning man, its hollow eyes staring into his soul. This time, Sam did not struggle. He let the spirit's icy fingers wrap around his wrist, felt the pull of the water dragging him down. As the darkness closed in, Sam's last thought was not of fear, but of relief. He was finally free from the nightmare. The next morning, Sam's apartment was quiet. His bed was neatly made, his belongings untouched. But Sam was gone, vanished without a trace. The only sign of his presence was a damp spot on the mattress, the faint scent of damp earth lingering in the air. Zor Karim, 04.07.2024-1346. The police searched for him, but found no clues. Friends and family mourned his disappearance, but life moved on. The apartment was rented out to a new tenant, who knew nothing of its previous occupant's fate. But the drowning man's curse did not end with Sam. The new tenant, a young woman named Lisa, began experiencing strange dreams. She saw a shadowy figure in her room, felt a heavy weight pressing down on her chest. She woke to find her bed damp, the smell of damp earth filling her nostrils. Lisa turned to the internet for answers, finding the same forum that Sam had frequented. She read through the posts, her fear growing with each account. She stumbled upon Sam's story, felt a chill run down her spine as she read his final messages. In her last message, she reached out to the only other user who seemed to understand. Night Horror 24, are you there? I think he's coming for me. There was no response, but deep in the shadows of her room, Lisa felt a presence watching, waiting. The drowning man's curse had found a new victim, and the cycle of terror would continue. And so, the legend of the drowning man lived on. A tale of sleep paralysis and restless spirits, passed down from one haunted soul to the next. No one knew where it began or where it would end. But for those trapped in its grip, there was no escape, no respite. Only the suffocating darkness and the cold, unyielding embrace of the drowning man, pulling them down into the depths of their own drowning dreams.